Thank you, and good day again, everyone. Thank you for joining our webinar today. My name is Ahmed Samir, and I'm the Managing Director of the Clean Energy Business Council. Today, we will be launching our white paper, Energy Efficiency in MENA, Status and Outlook. And this white paper is intended to serve as a resource for the MENA private sector, mainly, providing guidance to help the MENA businesses to best adapt for the announced electricity reforms and also to plan for the future reforms. Also, this white paper is intended to be a source of information for the different government authorities across the MENA region to effectively prepare and provide guidance to their citizens and businesses to best cope with the impacts of this electricity and energy subsidy reforms across the region. Just also, it's worth noting that this is the second edition of a previous edition that we launched in January of 2018 of the same paper, but it was mainly focusing on the GCC region. And the 2018 report was mainly focusing on covering the GCC region buildings, industrial, and also the transportation sector. That edition presented the overview of efficiency development as well as recommendations for businesses and policymakers. Sorry about that. So what's new in this white paper we are launching today is we have updated the electricity tariff data for the GCC countries that we already spoke about in the 2018 edition. And also we have included 3 more countries across the MENA region, which are Egypt, Jordan, and Morocco. And last but not least, we have updated or provided sectorial views of the buildings, industrial, and also the transportation sectors across the different countries that we are going to speak about today. Before we start the webinar, I just share my screen and give a very short presentation about the Clean Energy Business Council. This is mainly meant for people who are joining us for the first time. If you can just confirm whether that you see my screen.
Not yet. We still see the YouTube.
Okay. Now?
Yes, we see the presentation cover now, slide.
Yes, it's clear, yeah.
Excellent. So just in a nutshell, I'll try to be very quick. CEBC, we are a not-for-profit membership organization. We are based out of the UAE, but we cover Middle East and North Africa region, the MENA region. And what we do at CEBC is basically we represent the private sector who are working across the clean energy sector in the Middle East and North Africa region. And by representing them, we also work on their behalf to promote both investment and the different adoption tools for the renewable energy technologies across the different countries in the MENA region. One of our main key missions is to drive the development of the policies and regulations across MENA. And we do that by establishing different dialogues between the public and private sector, which is something that we are very active in across the different countries in the region. In addition to that, which is proven by this publication today, we do a lot of research and we publish a lot of white papers, policy papers across the different topics that I'm going to mention right now. So CEBC, we cover specific topics, which you can see at the bottom of this screen. We cover climate finance, mainly looking at how could we accelerate the access to financing for the renewable energy projects. We also cover low carbon hydrogen, whether it's green or blue hydrogen, as well as energy storage technologies. We do cover women in clean energy, looking at how could we encourage more women to get into the clean energy sector in the region. What are the challenges they face, and try to address these challenges through the different dialogues we do with the government entities and the private sector as well. The fourth topic, which is our topic for today, is energy efficiency. And as I mentioned, which will be clear through the presentation about the paper. We cover residential, commercial, and industrial buildings, as well as mobility, as you can see from the last working group we have, which is future mobility. Right now, we mainly focus on electrification of passenger vehicles within this working group. You can see here, this is a snapshot of our publications. This is only from 2021, covering different topics, including sustainable finance, including the status and outlook for the green debit market in the MENA region, electric vehicles and the UAE and MENA as well, among other topics as well. So you can find all of these publications absolutely free for anyone through the CEBC website. We organize a lot of events, as I mentioned. So if this is your first time to attend one of our events, please make sure that you subscribe to our newsletter so you receive the regular emails to attend the upcoming events as well. You can also check our website to watch any of the recordings from our previous events. We have been doing a lot of online events, so please make sure to check them out if you haven't done so yet. This is also a snapshot of our members. So we are proud to have a very diverse portfolio of members from across the MENA region and also from across the different clean energy sectors. You can find companies and from oil and gas companies to electric vehicle charging suppliers, electric vehicle manufacturers, energy efficiency, energy service companies, and many other sectors as well. So we are also very proud to have a very long list of partners, strategic partners that we work with from across the globe, actually. And this gives us a very good advantage to our members on how we promote them and access to the knowledge and exposure that they could get through these international platforms. We do different joint public and events with this esteemed list of partners, as you can see on the screen. Just quickly, I'll mention a couple of points about our energy efficiency working group, which was actually started in 2017. And the aim of this working group is to provide basically a forum for both the private sector and the public sector, the regulators, to discuss the policies, the development, and how could we advance the energy efficiency sector across buildings, industry, and also transportation across the different countries in the MENA region. So we cover specific topics, which I already mentioned, and the aim, as I just mentioned, is mainly to accelerate policy maturity, and at the same time to educate the different stakeholders, whether it's people who are interested to invest into that sector, or people as clients who, for the companies we have, who would be willing to do retrofitting or perform a specific kind of certification for the buildings, etc. We do different activities across this working group. One of them, as I mentioned, is this policy dialogues we do between the public and private sector. We do different events. Before COVID, we used to do networking events to allow people to come together and potentially get some business opportunities out of this networking events. Now we do a lot of online webinars, and also in addition to the research, of course, and the publications that we publish. This is also a snapshot of our energy efficiency working group members, and hopefully if you are not in this list after the webinar, please get in touch and we'll be happy to provide you information on how to become a member, what are the benefits, which you can see basically in this slide. There's a number of benefits that you can get by becoming a member of the CEBC. You become part of our network, and by becoming part of the network, you have access to all of our data, which some of the data we will mention shortly during the webinar are only accessible to the members in most of the cases. But we also have a network of other members and government stakeholders that you could also have access to this network. Also, our events, we do organize a lot of events that we provide a lot of opportunities for our members to speak at, and also at other events that we are usually part of. You could also potentially be a speaker and speak about your initiatives and the projects at the company. You have the chance also to contribute and access to our publications. So you become a co-author, and eventually also you get credit in the different publications we do. And last but not least, you also amplify the message that you are trying to deliver as a company and get some promotion throughout different communication channels as well. So that's CEBC. Again, if you'd like to get more information, please send us an email or just go to our website, and we'll be happy to assist you. So now I would like to kick off the webinar. So the webinar will have first the white paper launch presentation presented by Reda Sabuni, who is the Managing Director of Energetics for the Middle East and North Africa region, and also Ev Kara, who is a Research Associate at the Clean Energy Business Council. And please, if you have any questions during this 20 minutes presentation, you can put them in the chat, and Alex will be moderating 10 minutes questions and answers after the presentation. Then after the white paper presentation, we will have a panel discussion. We have a very esteemed panel of excellent speakers who are joining us from the countries who we think had the most changes across the MENA region. So I think it would be very interesting to hear the insights and hear more about the energy efficiency plans. We have Dr. Saeed Moulin, who is the CEO of the Moroccan Agency for Energy Efficiency. Welcome, Dr. Saeed. And we have also Dr. Rasmi Hamza, the Executive Director of the Jordan Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency Fund, joining us from Jordan. And we have Shireen Abdallah, who is a Manager for Technical Performance Evaluation Department at the Egyptian Electricity Regulatory Agency. So welcome everyone, and I would like to give the floor to Reda and Ev to start the presentation.
Thank you very much, Ahmed. I will share my screen in just a minute here. If I could be given access.
You have access now, Reda?
Not yet. I think it's still with you, Ahmed. So does someone need to hand it off to me? Okay. Okay, Ahmed, do you see the main screen?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Okay, great. So thank you very much. Again, my name is Reda Sabuni, and I lead energetics in the MENA region. We're a clean energy consultancy based in the United States, but also with an office in Dubai to serve the MENA region. So we are very excited to launch this updated paper. As Ahmed did mention, so the initial version of this paper was actually released in 2018, in January of 2018. This paper is still available to be downloaded on the CEBC website. The purpose of the paper was really just to look at the energy efficiency market in the MENA region, focusing on different sectors, including buildings, industrial, and transportation sectors. And the idea all along was to update this paper every so often as things continue to change, to track the progress and to see what the latest highlights are. So we have come now to 2021. It was a very interesting year, to say the least, and unexpected last year, but there have been a number of updates and changes since then. So even if you're just looking at the headlines throughout the region, you have a lot of changes going on in terms that really impact energy efficiency. So in terms of electricity, but also natural gas and other types of fuels. So that includes the UAE. In Oman, we noticed changes to the cost-reflective tariffs, also interesting changes in the residential sector there for the first time in many, many years. Saudi Arabia continuing changes in Jordan and in Bahrain. So we thought the time would be appropriate to update this paper. And so that effort was started earlier this year, and we are now launching it with the additional updates. So what has happened over these last 10 years? It's often difficult to find data that has a good time series, but we did find this interesting data set from the International Energy Agency that shows reductions in electricity subsidies, I should say, across the region. So if you look at this figure, a few highlights jump out, especially for the UAE and Qatar, 90% reduction between 2010 and 2019, which is very interesting. Even Saudi Arabia and Bahrain, 61% reduction. Kuwait, mostly flat, and Egypt increasing of subsidies in that time period are some of the other takeaways that we saw from this. So what does this translate into for each of these countries? So I'll let Elif, I believe, take over at this slide and tell us more about actually electricity tariffs across the region.
Okay, thank you very much, Rida. So here on the screen, we see some data that you will be able to find in the white paper. And we have compiled this data by researching through various resources, mainly through the government's websites. And we gotta say that in some countries, it was easier to find information than others. So we think that this may be one of the things to potentially be beneficial to improve in the future. So the figure on the left shows data points on the MENA residential sector electricity tariffs, and the one on the right contains data on all other sectors except residential, such as government, industrial, commercial, etc. So now you may realize that these two figures give a more country level and general view, but we can still catch some interesting information on them. So firstly, we see that across all the sectors, Jordan and Morocco's data points extend a bit farther than other countries, with Jordan having the highest tariffs. Kuwait has the lowest electricity tariffs when it comes to residential sector, but it's also generally low in the other sectors as well. We also can see that in figure 2, after Jordan and Morocco, Oman has numerous data points for the non-residential sector as well. And as Rida briefly mentioned in the beginning, this is mainly due to the cost-reflective tariffs that the country applies to the largest government since 2017. And lastly, across the UAE, Abu Dhabi has the lowest rate of electricity tariffs. If you could go to the next slide, please. So the following couple of slides visualize the electricity tariffs in selected MENA countries in a greater detail. Of course, now I will not go over each of them in a detailed way, but here, for instance, in the residential sector, we have Bahrain, Kuwait, Oman, Qatar, and Saudi Arabia divided up into different slabs and for different uses. And then in the next slide, we have, again, in the residential sector, Egypt, Jordan, and Morocco. And in the next slide, lastly, again, UAE's residential sector electricity tariffs in the detailed way. We also have the same type of graphs for the non-residential sector as well, for the selected MENA countries that were previously mentioned. If we could just, yeah, these are just examples that you will be able to find in the papers. Again, same countries, Morocco, Jordan, Oman, and the UAE. So if you could go to the next slide. Besides the data on the electricity tariffs, another important part of the paper is the sectoral point of view that we give. So we are basically looking at different sectors to provide recommendations to policymakers and other stakeholders to improve the energy efficiency landscape in the region. So this pie chart on the left shows what are the largest consumers of energy in the region. And according to the IEA data, we see that industrial, transport, and residential sectors aggregated together consume 3/4 of the total final energy in the Middle East. And therefore, these were the sectors that we naturally focused on in the paper as well. Also, the largest consumers of the total final electricity in the region are residential and industrial sectors, as you can see in the second pie chart. Now Rida will go more into detail on the highlights on the previously mentioned sectors and present some insightful recommendations for different stakeholders.
Yeah, so we'll start with the industrial sector. It is the largest, consumer for total final energy consumption across the world and into the region itself. So, a few highlights going on with the industrial sector for these past few years. So first of all, in Saudi Arabia, right? So Saudi Arabia is interesting because the Saudi Energy Efficiency Center, SEEC, has actually set energy efficiency targets that must be adhered to for energy-intensive industries. So, industries like cement, steel, aluminum, and petrochemicals. So the current SEEC target for these industries is to meet the average of a 2018 benchmark by the end of 2025. So that's a very promising development, showing the increased focus of Saudi Arabia on energy efficiency across the kingdom. In the UAE, we have very large aluminum, cement, and petroleum refining industries, for example, and the target there is to reach 25% of GDP by 2025. Another example is in Dubai, where they're looking to become an international hub for knowledge-based, innovative, and sustainable industries. Across the region as a whole, we see the importance of energy management. So both the UAE and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia have an emphasis on industrial energy management policies, for example, using the ISO 50001 energy management system framework. So ISO 50001 is an international standard for energy management. It basically offers a roadmap for any organizations that are looking to better manage their energy. So it includes things like guidance to establish energy teams, to have energy targets in place, how to measure their targets, things like performing regression models to take into account variables like production and weather. So you're not just measuring energy consumption as kilowatt hours, but it's a normalized energy consumption that takes into account those types of variables. So those types of topics are critical for ISO 50001, and we see that increasing in importance across the region. Both the UAE and KSA participate in what's called the Clean Energy Ministerial, which is a grouping of some of the largest economies across the world, and there is an energy management working group there that focuses on industrial energy management in particular. So a lot of great developments across the region. There is additional information in the paper. We just wanted to highlight these two for now. So in terms of recommendations for the industrial sector for policymakers, so again, on this theme of energy management is really critical because there's a lot of low-hanging fruits there to save energy simply through operational changes. So how you operate equipment across the region, oftentimes equipment operators don't operate equipment with energy efficiency in mind. They're just operating equipment just based on what they've been told. And since for many years energy was very cheap, it was subsidized, they may not have the best practices in place for energy efficiency. And so we see that changing across the region with ISO 50001 projects being implemented, as I mentioned, in Saudi Arabia and UAE, also in Oman, also in Egypt, also in Jordan, across the region, in Morocco, taking place as well. This is, following great work on this across the world, right? So in Japan, for example, very stringent industrial management programs have been mandatory for many years, since the early 1980s. At the very least, the European Union as well has strong incentives in place for energy management. So it's great to see this also now taking shape in the region as a whole. The UAE on this topic has more certifications than any other countries, and two GCC-based organizations have actually been awarded a very prestigious award from the Clean Energy Ministerial for excellence in energy management. So also interesting to note. The second thing is to provide incentives to organizations to perform energy audits. So if organizations cannot implement a full energy management system, which is a process that takes 6 months to 1 year typically to have something robust in place, at the very least, you can incentivize organizations to perform energy audits. And so that's something that can help to build momentum, to change the culture within an organization, because you've got to identify those quick wins and immediately save energy for that program. So one example just from the United States is providing free energy audits to US industrial organizations. And so a similar type of program, whether it's subsidized energy audits, or something that is completely covered, can definitely help to accelerate industrial energy management across the region. And then finally, the workforce is really, really critical across the region. Jobs goes hand in hand with energy efficiency. I think by establishing energy efficiency programs, you will actually help to create a strong workforce and jobs for people in your country. So there are different workforce development programs taking place across the region. One example, again, from the US is an industrial assessment center, which is a program that basically funds universities to provide free industrial assessments to identify energy savings, but also trains the future workforce in the United States to become experts in industrial energy efficiency. And so this is something actually in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia at KFUPM, King Fahd University for Petroleum and Minerals. They have established a similar program as well there that is looking to have a center of excellence for energy efficiency and renewable energy. Looking at transportation, so also a lot of things going on with transportation across the region. It is a very large consumer of energy. Approximately 27% of the region's total final energy consumption is in the transportation sector. And we do expect a very large structural change over the next decade. We see it in the headlines, I think all of us, the shift from internal combustion engines towards more electric vehicle, battery electric vehicle adoption. We see it from the automakers and also from different countries providing this shift. And so this is quite exciting, I think, for the region as a whole. In a few examples here, again, so in the UAE, in Dubai, the Dubai Roads and Transport Authority, they've announced that they've saved 30 million liters of fuel and 39 million kilowatt hours of energy in 2019. Even in the Northern Emirates, we see FIWA now starting to operate the first of 61 planned electric vehicle charging stations in 2017. And we see additional adoption of electric vehicles across the UAE, in particular, leading the region. In Saudi Arabia, we see EVs are a critical component for mobility strategies for some of the mega projects going on there. So one example is the Red Sea Development Company, which is developing an electric vehicle-based luxury tourism and hotel destination, which is completely powered by renewable solar and wind electricity. And very interesting, it's also going to be completely, the mobility solution will be completely electric vehicle based. So you'll have electric vehicle cars and also, buses and buggies and the entire solution will be electric vehicle based, which is a very exciting development, especially in Saudi Arabia. We also see in Egypt now electric buses starting to operate in Greater Cairo and in Alexandria for the past few years. We see local manufacturing of passenger electric vehicles and charging stations and greater incentives to encourage electric vehicles. So also very exciting developments. So what are some recommendations across the region for transportation? So it will take some time to really shift from internal combustion engines to electric vehicles. So that's why having these fuel economy standards will be very important, for the region as a whole. Planning for electric vehicle adoption will be critical. So assessing EV readiness, considering where to install a network of charging stations to align with usage in the different countries will be important. It takes some time and effort and thought to planning where to have those charging stations. Something that is farther out, but something that should be bared in mind is connected and autonomous vehicles. So that's something to bear in mind in terms of regulations. And we see different tests going on across the region, different pilots for these connected and autonomous vehicles. And then educating the public. So it'll take a massive shift of thinking for these vehicles as you change your thinking for internal combustion engines to electric vehicles. So awareness campaigns will be critical for the different benefits. For example, less maintenance that are required for electric vehicles. And I think as battery technology continues to increase and improve, we're going to see range continue to increase as well. And I think that is important also to have awareness campaigns, because I think a concern for many is still this range anxiety, but I think that is becoming less and less of an issue as the batteries continue to improve and get better. For vehicle fleet owners, so conducting a fleet assessment can be one way to basically identify ways to save energy in your fleet of vehicles. Right sizing, right typing vehicles will be important. And then, having a plan in place to green your fleet. So that includes electric vehicle planning, but also different KPIs that you can have to optimize your fleet of vehicles. So now shifting focus to the building sector. So for buildings, also use a lot of energy, both commercial buildings, government buildings, and residential buildings as a whole. So over here, defining goals will be critical as the #1 thing. Understanding your organization's sustainability and energy saving goals. We see we're entering now an era of decarbonization. So it's a carbon constrained world. And so we see this now increasingly reflected in the organizations in the MENA region. And so that is going to be important for defining goals. And then once you have your goals in place or some idea of your goals, you could now look at the different methods to achieve those savings and procuring that energy efficiency. You could perform an energy audit, and that could immediately find some low-hanging fruit, some very low payback measures to cut your energy bill. You could look at, the hiring a service provider, an ESCO, energy service company, to deliver on those savings. And you could find different companies actually publicly listed across the region as well. And then you monitor and report progress. So throughout the process, you want to continually improve your energy performance and not just have a one-time improvement at the start. And then looking at policymakers for the building sector as a whole in terms of incentivizing energy efficiency. You could have incentive programs, so giving discounts or revising the tariff structure. We're seeing this across the board, different incentives in place to drive buildings to reduce consumption and improve energy performance. The bottom line, if there's no business case for energy efficiency, then it will not succeed. And so that's why it is positive to see different incentives being put in place for energy efficiency. Also energy reporting. So if you have public marketing campaigns to showcase, to promote highest performers in a neighborhood, in a city or in a country, that can actually incentivize energy efficiency through behavioral approaches. If you see your neighbor doing really well, that incentivizes you to also do well. And then training and education as well. I talked about it earlier, so workforce development is so critical across the region. And so these kinds of education and training programs can give the insights needed to improve energy efficiency across the board. So we see a few examples in the UAE, for example. There's the Emirates Green Building Council. They have projects with UAE hotels. They have voluntary participation of 46 UAE hotels looking at this topic. So that's a benchmarking program, and also it's aligned with a building energy efficiency accelerator. And lastly, I'll turn it back to Elif to talk about the ESCO market and to close out the presentation.
Okay. So we touched on many important points on several sectors, and we are running out of time a bit, so I'll be quick, but it's really important to mention the key ESCO market developments in the region, as they are key enablers in attaining the target energy efficiency levels. So when we look at the overall situation of the ESCO market in the region, we actually remark that the market stays still somewhat fragmented, but it has developed actually in recent years, especially with the introduction of super ESCOs in some countries. So for instance, the UAE has 2 super ESCOs, the first one in Dubai and second in Abu Dhabi. Firstly, in Dubai, the Etihad Energy Services Super ESCO program was established in 2013, and it aims to reduce water and power consumption by 30% in the next 10 years. And they also want to complete the retrofitting of buildings in Dubai by 2030. And in Abu Dhabi, again in the UAE, we have a more recent super ESCO established in 2020, which is the Abu Dhabi Energy Services. And they focus on 3,000 Abu Dhabi government buildings. And their target level of energy savings is 2.7 terawatt hour by 2030 in Abu Dhabi. And when it comes to Saudi Arabia, the Super ESCO tar sheet was created in 2017, and this was mainly through the funding from the Saudi Public Investment Fund. And it's quite ambitious actually, because its mandate includes around 70% of energy efficiency projects across the kingdom. And it is estimated to be a market of around 11 billion US dollars. And last but not least, Morocco has joined actually amongst the MENA countries with a Super ESCO, and their already established organization SIE has transformed into a Super ESCO to mainly facilitate the financing of energy efficiency in public buildings. So that concludes our presentation, but you are welcome to download the white paper from our website, which is available now, to learn more about the topic. And we gotta say that CEBC members will have access to the raw data on electricity tariffs, as I previously presented during this presentation, on the website through the members only content section. So thank you very much for joining this webinar and listening to our presentation. Now I will hand it over to Alex to, now we have the Q&A session, sorry. I'll just hand it over to Ahmed.
Thank you very much, Rida and Elif. Very interesting. And again, for the audience, please make sure to download the paper from the website. The link is in the chat. If you go to the website, you can find it. It's absolutely completely for free. So please download it, read it, send us your comments, and also share it with your colleagues who are working in the sector. We have 5 minutes because we received a few questions. So I'd like to invite Alex Malouf, who is working as the Corporate Communications Director at Schneider for Middle East and Africa, to moderate the questions and answers session. Over to you, Alex.
Thank you, Ahmed, and hello, Rida. So I'm going to jump in terms of the questions because there is a lot to cover in terms of the subject. So Rida, the first question, transport and mobility is often seen as a sexy topic when it comes to the issue of energy and the energy transition piece. How do you see the adoption of EVs across the region shifting the energy debate, and what interesting projects do you want to really highlight on in terms of those elements which are leading the change?
Yeah, it's such an exciting topic, I think, for me, especially to see this, taking place and in real time, just shifting so quickly. It's taking place at different levels. Each country is kind of working at their own pace. Really depends oftentimes on the energy subsidies, in place. That will impact just how quickly it's going to change. So, I think in the paper we do have some more details on each of the countries. But I think one project I touched on it in my remarks, and I'll just talk a little bit more about it, is this Red Sea project, right? So basically, it's a brand new development, completely from scratch that they're developing on the Red Sea coast. It is 100% powered by wind and solar energy. And so they have boots on the ground. They are putting everything in place now. And so this is something Energetics was involved with to actually help with the strategy and planning for the electric vehicle infrastructure. So you're going to have thousands of vehicles eventually. So we're talking about the hotels will first be opened up at the end of next year, so the late end of next year. And by 2030, you're going to have 8,000 rooms in this development. And the entire resort will be planned with a mobility strategy of electric vehicles in mind. And so to see this take place in Saudi Arabia, of all countries, it's really, really impressive. And it shows that the electric vehicles is a trend that is continuing. It is here to stay in the region and across the world.
So second big topic, industrial energy efficiency. What is happening in this space?
So industrial energy, also interesting topic, also a lot of things that are changing across the region and the world. So I mentioned energy management in my talks. I won't get into that more, but I'll say that is important, just to look at the low-hanging fruits. And the other thing is just that I see going on is industrial decarbonization. So focusing on, decarbonizing across all sectors and then for industry as well. So hydrogen is coming into play, right? Saudi Arabia is very focused on hydrogen. To complement what they have in their industry, their petrochemicals sectors right now. So that's important. You see a lot of research and development taking place as well in the United States, for example, focusing on industrial decarbonization, especially the energy intensive sectors, for example, cement, chemicals, refining. So those are very energy intensive, process heat intensive industries. And so there's, how do you actually eliminate the carbon from those industries? Well, it may involve, energy efficiency measures, but it may also involve things like carbon capture and storage and utilization, which you see also projects in this region taking place as well. So yeah, and I'll mention there's a couple of things going on there. So for example, UNIDO has an activity that they're doing, which is the United Nations Industrial Development Organization. I'll post it in the chat, which will be interesting for folks to see as well.
Okay, last question. I'm going to give you 60 seconds. If you are going to give policymakers any advice in terms of accelerating the energy efficiency drive, what would it be?
So there needs to be this financial incentive in place. So if the tariffs have not yet been reformed, I think the tariffs need changing, and you need to make sure to have programs in place to help those with the transition, right? So the idea is not just to leave them out, but rather to take some of the savings from cutting the subsidies and establishing programs to help those that need those savings or that incentives, I should say. And then just having targets. So national energy efficiency plans are critical. Targets in place at the national level will be very important to set the stage for then organizations to follow, which we're living in this now carbon constrained world. They have this incentive globally, and they need just that direction at the national level as well is critical.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Rida and Elif, for the presentation. The white paper is there. You can download it via the chat. You can also see handouts as well. So please do take it, do read it. It's full of interesting insights. And yes, let's take it and let's use the information there to drive for change. So thank you again, both of you.
Yeah,
thank you, Alex.
Thank you, and Elif. And I would like to ask Alex to stay with us and invite Dr. Saeed Moureen, the CEO of the Moroccan Agency for Energy Efficiency, to join us. Also, Dr. Rasmi Hamza, the Executive Director of the Jordan Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency Fund, as well as Shireen Abdullah, who is the Manager at the Technical Performance Evaluation Department at the Egyptian Electricity Regulator Agency. I will have about 50 minutes for interactive panel discussion. So please, for the audience, do put your questions in the questions pan, and we'll do our best to answer them at the end. So over to you, Alex, and I'm sure Dr. Rasmi will join as well right now.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Ahmed, and welcome everyone. I'm really excited about this panel because there is so much happening in Morocco, in Egypt, and also in Jordan as well. And it's brilliant to be joined by policymakers, Dr. Saeed, Dr. Rasmi, and Engineer Shireen. Three people who are really leading the way when it comes to energy efficiency in your respective countries. I am going to begin, if I may, with Engineer Shireen from Egypt. You've been instrumental in terms of looking at policies to drive this transformation for Egypt's planning. Let's start with what is in place right now. So what energy efficiency legislations have been adopted in Egypt, and how have these legislations affected the energy market? I need to ask you if you can unmute yourself. Let me see if I can also do it from my side. You are still muted. I am just going to try and unmute you. Here you go, Engineer Shireen. You should be unmuted now. Can you try now? It's still not working.
Can you hear me
there
now?
You go. Yes, we can hear you now. That's brilliant.
Yes, great. Okay, talking about legislations in terms of energy efficiency in Egypt is something that can need some historical background to talk about, because we have already some legislations before the energy market reform and others after. So to be aware of all what happened in this area in Egypt, we can start with some chronicle or historical background, small one. We can begin with something happened in 90s, that important projects were held for energy efficiency and the greenhouse gas reduction, like the great project of GEF project. It is one of most important project related to energy efficiency in Egypt. It was in 1999. After that, a new era began when establishment of Egypt Era. Egypt Era is the organization I work for. It is the Egyptian electricity regulator. The regulator set some measures for energy efficiency and for performance evaluation in order to enhance the quality and efficiency of the grid. After that, in 2009, some integral and cross-sectoral cooperation activities were happened. One result and one important result of that was big awareness campaign, like putting some media and some stickers on transportation, some booklet for residential and commercial sector customers, awareness tips. These were to disseminate the concept of energy efficiency itself. After that, the new or other era began by preparing the first NIAB for Egypt. It was from 2012, the first NIAB, to 2015. The NIAB followed the energy saving targets that were set in energy strategy for 2030. And it's focused on reducing the electricity consumption. That was the first NIAB. It differs from the second one, which focusing on the institutional framework more than only reducing the electricity consumption. About Egypt Era Energy Efficiency Committee, it was established in 2012, and it begins with volunteering work with distribution companies. This was to make something like industrial audits for free for industries, make some capacitor installation for the industrial loads to enhance the network and increase, of course, the power factor. After that, it was one great achievement and step for training some performance evaluation engineers on how to make energy audits in terms of ISO 50001. Egypt Era, in cooperation with GCEE, which is the German Egyptian Committee for Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy, made some trainings for those people, and make also TOT training, so it become like a network. Engineers train others, and others train others, and so on. In 2015, the electricity law was issued, and this is a great achievement for the electricity sector in general, and for energy efficiency especially, because energy efficiency has a separate chapter in the electricity law, which has many articles stating how to deal with the market in terms of energy efficiency after 2015. In 2016, the executive regulation for this law had been adopted, and about that legislations and some of these articles, for example, the article linking cogeneration units, or its obligation to linking cogeneration units and distributed generation units producing electricity from power recovered, and it is mandate on a network operator and the electricity distribution licensee to connect these units on grid. And also there was an article for big customers who are more than 500 kilowatt contractual capacity. Those shall appoint officials to be assigned to improve the power usage efficiency and keep a power register in the manner described in the executive regulations. And these executive regulations describe that by those of saying that those officials must be appointed to improve some power usage efficiency and make KPIs and make energy register in their facilities. And Egypt issued the first version of guidelines of energy register in 2017. It was to help people to make their energy registers. And according to this article also, the Regional Center for Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency, RECRE, has launched a larger program, which is a CEMP program. It's a Certified Energy Management Professional Training. So we have a large network of energy managers.
Thank you very much.
Also, distribution companies.
If you just let me just jump in.
We have just 2 other articles, but it's okay. Yes.
Okay, because I just want to bring in Dr. Said as well, because I want to also look at what is happening in Morocco. Dr. Said, you look after the Moroccan Agency for Energy Efficiency. You're the CEO, so there's nobody better placed to discuss this. What is the state of energy efficiency reforms in Morocco?
Well, thank you, Mr. Malouf, for this invitation, and thanks to the Clean Energy Business Council. I'm very glad to participate to this event, especially as I think with this pandemic, energy efficiency became much more a key for many policies. As you know, many policies today for the recovery are linked to the digital economy and the green economy. So we are very glad that this event, you know, the Kingdom of Morocco is a very energy dependent country with quite high energy tariff. Your document, your paper mentioned it, how today when you compare to the other countries in the MENA regions, as the energy tariff in Morocco and Jordan is quite high comparing to others. But it's very important when we are a very energy dependent country, in our strategy, we will look at all the possibility to decrease this energy dependence, to decrease the energy bill. And in 2009, when we start a new strategy for the energy sector, priority was given to renewables and energy efficiency with targets. We have a target of 52% of our electricity capacity coming from renewables in 2030, and also 15% of energy efficiency in all sectors, 5 sectors: industry, transport, building, cities with public lighting, and agriculture. In all those sectors, we developed new regulations, new laws linked to energy efficiency. We developed norms. We developed technical and financial support. And of course, the last point, very important in energy efficiency, all linked to sensibilization and also capacity building, training. So when you have all those axes developed in each sector, you can reach those objectives. We have some results today. In agriculture, for example, we start with helping farmers to decrease the energy bill, but also by using small renewables, solar pumping, for example. And one point is we are reaching today more than 40,000 farmers using solar pump instead of diesel pumps. And one thing very important linked to energy efficiency is to show that when you have the sensibilization of the farmers, for example, when you have the financial dedicated loans for that with local banks, when you have training, and you can reach all those points, but you need to put all those points together at the same time. You need the technical support, the sensibilization, the financial support, and then you can develop the market. And the market is purely private. They're deciding, but you need to convince them for that. So that's what we need for farmers. But for other sectors, in building sector, you need norms, definitely. But it took 4 years to convince architects, to convince all the actors that are buildings how to change their way of buildings, and to show also that we have many products, local products, that can be used for more efficient buildings. So that's how we can manage, but also you need to do some pilot projects. That's what we did in different regions for social houses, where we developed pilot projects and show that architects can do this, but also that the products are available all over the country for that. In the industry, it's also very important, and we are looking for, with the MORCEF, we had a fund dedicated to Moroccan Sustainable Energy Financial Facility with EBRD. In 4 years, 100 million euros used just to finance energy efficiency in some industries. In 4 years, we got the project. We had a small grant for that, 10%. For any investment, for any industry who wants to implement any project linked to energy efficiency. And in 4 years, they reimburse the loans. So energy efficiency is very, very competitive today. And one thing is also because the energy tariffs are quite high in Morocco, but we managed to have that because also we stop subsidizing fossil fuel. And in your paper, it's very important point. It's something that is key today. For that, you need to have a policy. And when we stop subsidizing diesel, for example, the payback for farmer for solar pump switched from 10 years to 5 years. So the whole economy of the project became much, much easier to implement. So that's why we have this approach, and to be coherent in our policy, we had the chance that we had this vision from the king giving priority to renewable energy and energy efficiency. We have the political support, and with that, you can have all the actions, but to be coherent, you need to stop subsidizing fossil fuel at the same time.
Thank you very much, Dr. Said. Dr. Rasmi Hamza, I know you're with us. I know you have issues in terms of your video, so you can only join by audio, but I obviously now want to switch to Jordan. You are the Executive Director for the Jordan Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency Fund. And Jordan has done a lot of work in this space. It started out, it could be said that it started out many years before other countries in the region. What has been the learnings of you in terms of this journey, which you can share with us? You know, how have you made energy efficiency successful in Jordan?
Thank you, Alex. Hello, my friends. Hello, my colleagues from Egypt and from Morocco. I'm glad to hear your experiences, your projects, your vision as well. Thank you, Alex, and our colleagues for arranging this gathering, and I'm glad to share with you some ideas about this important topic. As you know, first of all, we started an energy efficiency journey since 2007 here in Jordan. And at that time, Jordan Renewable Energy and the Energy Efficiency Fund in 2015, we started working as
Hi, Dr. Rasmi. The connection is coming and going on your side.
In beginning of 2015, and we launched our second.
Okay, I think we have lost Dr. Rasmi. This is one of the challenges, obviously, of doing things remotely, which we are still sometimes struggling with in the region. But Engineer Shireen, I want to turn back to you've mentioned the NEEAP, the National Energy Efficiency Action Plan, which you have worked on, you and your team. Okay. Are you back, Dr. Rasmi? I can hear you now. Yes, we can hear you.
Sorry for this. So, shall I continue?
Yes, please. Yes.
I was saying since 2015, once Tariffs started, we designed our program for energy efficiency in two parallel issues. First of all, it's let's say policymakers, working with the policymakers to design all the laws, regulations, whom supporting our journey with energy efficiency in buildings, in industrial sector, in tourism sector, different sectors actually, not just in building sector. This is one. The second, in parallel to that, is working to design a package of financial mechanisms to subsidize actions, and that's covering different sectors as well. Why I'm saying this? I'm saying this because the countries, they can't just talking about energy efficiency in a countries like in a Gulf area, for example, where the electricity prices is a little bit cheap, or in Jordan we have a higher price. Of course, in Morocco as well, as we noted in the report. In Egypt is better than Jordan and Morocco. However, if you want to design a long-term vision with a very solid strategic action plans, you need to work on a financial package as well in parallel with the legal framework, clear to subsidize and to enforce, energy efficiency mitigations. And when we're saying that government should be in, as well financial mechanism with banks to facilitate implementing projects. This is why we are working here with commercial banks, as well as we are working with our international partners like EBRD, EIB, and other international donors as well on board with us. And now we are designing a new mechanisms of work in order to for sustainability actions, which is working with ISCOs. Now we are creating a new like super ISCOs, and I'm glad with the Saudi Arabia and the UAE experience with this. Of course, we are consulting with them, and we have now, let's say, developing the legal framework, as well as consulting with the financial sector in order to ensure that we have, first of all, financing. Second, consulting with the energy companies in order to establish a strong ISCOs. With this, we can support as a government, as a Jarif, maybe through a different financial mechanism, but we will ensure that we have sustainable actions will be implemented by a professional, as well as ensure that there is a financial mechanisms there subsidized with very encourageable interest rates. And now we are thinking that Jarif, as a Jordan Renewable Energy and the Energy Efficiency Fund, as a governmental fund, to take care of the interest rates on this, so that we will encourage all the governmental building, industrial sector, tourism sector to implement a comprehensive energy efficiency mitigation, as well as the governmental building. They will be the first, let's say, beneficiaries for this. And now we are working in schools, hospitals, and other governmental industries and other governmental building and sectors, so that I think a comprehensive vision for this is very, very important. Clear KPIs yearly, very, very important. Involvement of the government is important. Awareness campaigns around this, very important. Working with the policymakers and legislative departments also is important.
Wonderful.
Alex.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rasmi, for those comments. Really insightful. Engineer Shireen, I want to shift back to you if I can do. Can you tell us more about this National Energy Efficiency Action Plan, which you and your team have developed for Egypt?
Yes, sure. We have two NEAPs in Egypt. The first one from 2012 to 2015, and the second one from 2018 to 2022. So about the first one, it was very initiative, and it was focusing on just make savings, like putting labeling on appliances, distribution of LED lamps, and replacing the conventional ones, awareness of financing and promote solar water heaters and so on, street lighting, replacement, also reduce energy consumption for governmental building, and other actions in the same area of how to reduce the consumption. Second NEAP is more sophisticated and more generic. It's depends on the strategic goals of SDGs and the energy strategy for Egypt 2035. And this is to ensure energy security and contribution of energy sector in GDP, maximize the benefit from local energy sources. And the last and the most important one is improvement of the institutional framework for energy efficiency in many sectors in Egypt. It has some KPIs and some measures to revisit the plan periodically. And some projects like El Daba nuclear power plant, like capacity building for in energy sector, promote innovation of energy infrastructure and legislations, and so on. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Engineer Shireen. Dr. Saeed, I want to ask you in terms of how you're placing objectives on energy efficiency policy. How are you defining what you want to achieve, and what advice can you give to other policymakers in terms of defining your energy efficiency goals as a government?
I think one of the key, as I mentioned before, it was to be coherent in the policy. If you give priority to energy efficiency with renewables, of course, you need to be coherent and to stop because the subsidies of fossil fuel. It's the key, the first key. I mentioned it, but it's the key because all the projects became more and more economic. And when you have short time for the payback for any project, if you talk with the architect or you talk with the, in industry, in SMEs, or any actors consuming energy or transport companies, you look at how when you have the payback shorter, they can manage to do the investment. The second point, of course, you need the political support. You need to put some incentives. The incentives are key, but for that, you need dedicated agencies for that, to implement and to help that for the legislation, but also for the technical and financial support. And for that, you need, of course, a lot of sensibilization. So the agencies should do that for each sector. So that's why I think, because energy efficiency in this environment is really economic today, more and more today, and we managed to reach some objective easily because of that. So the key, of course, is stop subsidizing fossil fuel, dedicated agencies, and political support. When you're discussing with different ministries, with Minister of Habitat, Minister of Transport, Minister of Industry, to convince them, you need to put all the points together and to show them that everyone is winning because of the economy of the project. That's the key. And today we are glad that we managed that because of this coherent policy linked to energy.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saeed. Dr. Rasmi, I want to turn back to you. We've heard a number of times, including from yourself, the importance of getting banks and financial institutions involved. How have you encouraged this? How have you got the banks and Jordan to step up and support in terms of the energy efficiency transition?
Thank you, Alex. It's very important to have the commercial banks and other financial institutions on board. Without financing, actually, your efforts as a government will be limited because your access to finance is very limited. Private sector leading with this. Private sector being leading in renewable energy actions and the projects in the Arab world, not the governmental. The government actually, they design the framework and rule regulations, but the private sector, they get success. As well with the energy efficiency. Energy efficiency will be led by big ESCOs, sustainable, professional ESCOs, whom implementing value-creal actions and mitigations, and according to contracts, professional contracts of on saving KPIs, very clear saving KPIs. So commercial banks should be on board. In Jordan, for example, we started with the central bank. I've been talking as a jury with central bank, and we have an agreement that the central bank will push forward all the funds and the grants and the green lendings project to cover all the energy efficiency and renewable energy on a small scale projects, and to include this through the commercial bank. So we signed the agreements with the commercial bank under the patronage of the central bank, with the support of the central bank, and with this way we have an official, a framework and official umbrella to push the commercial bank to be on board. And the commercial banks, they got their all conditions, requirements to be in. For example, we been guaranteeing the loans, we're guaranteeing the interest rates, as well as we took the part of the technical advices, so that all the energy audit studies that we are pushing forward to expand with the industrial sector and other sectors, we are sending a covering letter with our opinion about this energy audit studies, that this is feasible. This is feasible because the banks, they can read well the energy audit study. They can't evaluate the loans and green lending loans is just for them as a loan. They can't read it as an energy or energy efficiency loan. This is our intervention here. And this is how we can help the banks to be in, as well as take part of the technical job on behalf of them. When we, as JREF, sending them that this is a visible energy audit study, they will take guarantees that we are paying the interest rate and we are paying the guarantees as well from the Jordan Guarantees Company, so that they will become on board and feel, okay, technical part is covered, and there is an official governmental body subsidizing with interest rates and the guarantees as well. So they are checking the client in a little bit if he's bankable or not. In general, he's not blacklisted, so they are going to implement this. So you need to make sure that the commercial bank are on board through helping them to understand the process, helping them the visibility of the projects, as well as to ensure that there is a lending process with the central bank with low interest rate, of course, supporting them on this process. In Jordan, this is what we did. We covered by the central bank, and we have an agreement with the commercial banks so that they became on board. And all of our discussions with the international banks like EBRD, AIB, all of them, we are ensuring that we are on board as a government, as well as green lending through the central bank to the commercial banks with low interest rate to the industrial sector or tourism sector or the other sector. So that you need to facilitate this. Banks, commercial banks, they need to ensure that they are on board and they understand the process. Otherwise, they will not get in.
Thank you very much, Dr.
Alex.
Rasmi, for that explanation.
It's a pleasure. Alex, I have to leave. I'm waiting to enter the meeting. So I have to go into another important meeting. They are waiting me.
Sure.
So
thank you very much, Dr. Rasmi. Sure, it's been a pleasure to have you.
And regards to my colleagues from Morocco and from Egypt, and thank you for managing this.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rasmi. It's a pleasure to have had you, and all the best for your next meeting. Engineer Shireen, I want to move. Thank you. I want to move back to you. You are the regulator in Egypt. Can you tell us about the regulatory framework and the reforms that you've put in place, and how you've integrated the energy efficiency efforts across different sectors, different parts of the country? How have you brought all of this together?
Yes. Regulator always set the regulations and decisions to be suitable to the market status. Regulations, directives, guidelines, any recommendations on in the market or procedures are made from time to time to support the policies. And any amendments are made upon versions with stakeholder involvement. The main player are strategies like NEAP, as we said, Egypt Vision, SDG, Energy Sector Strategy. An example for that was a situation when NEAP made the recommendation to apply the energy register in buildings. Egypt issued the guidelines for making energy register, and so it is a reflection. When also the government issued the investment law, for example, Egypt made amendments to facilitate the net metering scheme. So it's always a reflection of policies set by the government. I'm trying to be concise.
Thank you. That was a wonderful, concise answer. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you very much. Dr. Saeed, I want to ask you, you've got a very interesting background. You've done a lot of work in terms of industry. And I was reading, for example, how you were advised to the president of OCP, which is the world's largest phosphate company. So I wanted to get your opinion in terms of what you are seeing when you look at industry and in energy efficiency and what industry is trying to do in terms of moving to become more sustainable?
Definitely. You know that AME last March was placed under the authority of the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Green and Digital Economy. And in addition to energy efficiency, AME missions were also expanded to sustainable mobility and clean production in the industry, with really a focus on decarbonization of the industry. As you know, EU is preparing a carbon border tax, and we are looking how the Kingdom of Morocco can take advantage of that. We can decarbonize our industry by decreasing the energy bill. That's the chance today, because there's huge, with energy efficiency and with the use of renewables, you can today decrease the energy bill of the industry and at the same time decarbonize it. You mentioned OCP. OCP has a target of being carbon neutral in 2040. Huge program developed. Already today, almost 80% of the electricity is coming from renewables. All the system in the chemistry is with heat recovery system that can be used. This energy is used for desalination. And also, we are working today, because we mentioned a little bit about that, about the green hydrogen revolution. And of course, with OCP, they're working on the green ammonia, as they're importing ammonia today, but we're going to produce our own green ammonia because of the link with renewables, cheap renewables, and you can develop green hydrogen in an economic way. So for the industry, for big actors like OCP, it's also, of course, quite easy as they're big actor, but all SMEs. We have a program today, the agency launched with the Maroc PME, another agency in the same ministry. For all SMEs, we have 30% subsidies for any investment in the green economy. If you are a small company who wants to do any energy audits or investment in the energy efficiency or in the renewables or in waste management or circular economy, you are able to have 30% subsidies from that. One point is the financial sector also. It was mentioned by my colleague from Jordan, but it's something it's very important. All local banks in Morocco, they have loans dedicated to energy efficiency, and now we are changing that to green economy to be more to have more access. It's also we are developing with EBRD the Green Economy Financial Facility and also the Green Value Chain. But also we developed Tatwir Vert, Green Tatwir, with this agency that I mentioned before, to give subsidies for any investment in it. This is very important. Our industry is the key, and our industry is paying today very quite high energy bill. So a chance is that with renewables today, with energy efficiency, we're decreasing this bill and we're decarbonizing the industry. And that's why it is a key now in the new objectives that we have as agency dedicated to the green economy.
Thank you very much, Dr. Said. We have 1 minute left, so I'm going to ask you for a very brief answer to a pretty complex question, but we've got COP26 this year in a couple of months' time. We're obviously seeing what's happening in terms of energy issues. We're seeing what's happening in terms of climate issues around the world. Looking forward, Engineer Shireen, let me start with you. How important do you see energy efficiency becoming to Egypt in 30 seconds? Looking forward, how important will energy efficiency be in the years ahead?
Yes, energy efficiency is so much important, especially in achieving the goals set by energy strategy. We have energy mix must be achieved, like 14% of wind, 2% of hydro, 22% of photovoltaic. This is an accelerating effort to make this or achieve these goals. Also, something we talked about, which about institutional framework and energy efficiency, is so much important to regulate and arrange that efforts made here and there, and make sectoral cooperation. Also, we have ICES, which is the institutional strategy. We have measures for completing the establishment of some units and raising the awareness of many many areas in Egypt. So to achieve the KPIs we need to reach, we are accelerating our efforts in the next or the near future.
Thank you very much, Engineer Shireen. Dr. Said, very, very quickly, 30 seconds, how can we accelerate the energy efficiency drive in Morocco? And also as well, you've mentioned as well the green economy. How can we accelerate both? How can we make them go faster?
Well, I was doing the COP22 in charge of the public-private commission. We developed many actions. This is an energy efficiency magazine launched during the many COPs since that time, in COP22 and in COP25. For each COPs, we are really pushing for energy efficiency. We discussing about financing. A lot of financing is going to big renewables. We should look at how financing can finance energy efficiency and small renewables. There's a key. It's much complicated. You have to go through local banks and things like that, but the result is much more creating jobs, much more having direct results for industries, for citizens to decrease the energy bill, for farmers to decrease the energy bill. So all those actors should be have more support for that. And one thing is this public-private partnership is very key. It's a key. All our projects are developed with the private sectors. It's not the agency who is implementing actions, but with the private sector, but you need capacity building for them. So what we are pushing in each COP is to look and much more priority to that.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Dr. Said. Thank you, Engineer Shireen. Thank you, Dr. Said. And also, I know he's gone, but thank you, Dr. Rasmi, for your brilliant inputs today. It's been an absolute pleasure being your moderator and facilitator. So again, thank you for everything that you've shared. And over to you, Ahmed.
Thank you very much, Alex, for the very interesting and interactive panel. And I would like to thank all the attendees for joining us today. Please, again, just for the final time, make sure to download the white paper. We received some questions which we couldn't answer during the panel. I'm sure you will find answers in the white paper itself. And before we conclude, I would like to thank the paper sponsors, Johnson Controls and Innova. I would also like to thank all the people who have contributed to the white paper, including Dr. Raed Kayat, who actually spent so much time with us to make this white paper as it is now. So unfortunately, he couldn't join the webinar, but thanks again, Dr. Raed. I would like to thank Hugo from Energy GCC, Johannes Thumi from Hager Group, and of course, Alex Maruf from Schneider Electric for viewing the white paper as well. So thanks again, everyone, and hopefully we'll see you at future CEBC events. Thank you and have a great evening. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.